Easy counting, two twos, capital numbers, deadly digits, and unique sayings. Those are just a few ways that numbers work differently in China and the United States, which we'll be going over in this week's episode. But first, hi, I'm Trevor.
I'm Susu.
Together, we're exploring the differences between China and the United States.
As you can imagine, there are many.
One of those differences is the topic of today's video:
numbers!
You might be asking, ooh, Trevor, I thought numbers work the same no matter what country you are in. A dozen donuts in the United States is still a dozen donuts in China, right? To that, dear hypothetical viewer, the fact that this video even exists proves you wrong. Well, the content is going to. Just keep watching. Also, I hope you were planning on sharing those donuts. Our first difference is in the numbers themselves. While you may have expected that the numbers are pronounced differently in Mandarin versus English, you might be surprised at how different counting is. When you're counting in English, the first not totally unique number that you encounter is 13, which comes from 3 and 10. However, even in this case, the 3 and the 10 are wearing disguises. That might not sound like a big deal, and indeed it isn't, but if you haven't learned how to count in Mandarin before, you might be surprised at how simple counting can be. In Mandarin, as in English, the numbers 1 through 10 are all unique.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
However, unlike English, as soon as you know the numbers 1 through 10, you can count all the way up to 99 before you need a new number. How can that be? Simple. In Mandarin, 11 is 10-1, 20 is 2-10, and 21 is 2-10-1. You follow this pattern all the way up to 99, which is 9-10-9.
That is easy. So if I knew the word for 100, I could count all the way up to 999?
Well, not quite. Ha, tutus. But what the title said is correct. In order to count up to 999 in Mandarin, you'll need the words for 100, 0, and another 2.
I saw you said counting in Mandarin was easy.
It is, but nothing's perfect. In English, you keep adding unique numbers. In Mandarin, you have 2 words for 2. Besides, our second 2 is more recommended than mandatory in this context. But why 2 twos? In Mandarin, when you're referring to 2 of something, 2 apples, 2 people, 2 donuts. Hey, I thought you said there were a dozen of these. You use the word liang. You can think of it as being similar to a couple in English. If you're talking about the numeral 2, as in Greg's apartment number is 202, then you'd use the numeral r. For some reason in Mandarin, we often use liang when we're talking about big numbers such as 200 or 2000. Strictly speaking, when saying 200 or 2000, you could still use r without sounding unnatural or causing any confusion. The same, however, cannot be said about our next difference. If you asked me, how many hamburgers would you like? And I responded, 105. Forgive me, I am American. How many would you give me? Chances are you would give me this many. You know I'm watching my figure after all. However, in China, that would not be the case. If you rocked up to a McDonald's, translated 105 directly into Mandarin, and asked for that many hamburgers, you would receive a whopping 150 patties slapped between 2 halves of a bun, preferably with cheese. So before you have to eat 45 more burgers than you were planning on, let's see what we can do to avoid this extremely relatable mistake. In Mandarin, instead of defaulting to the ones place like in English, a number without a defined place will fall in the next available place. So instead of 105 placing the 5 in the ones place, it moves to the next available place, the tens place, so you get 150. This holds true no matter how big the number is, so 1,000,000,001 directly translated into Mandarin would give you 1,100,000,000,000. The best way to avoid this is using zeros. Like how in English you can say 105, in Mandarin you could say 105to mean this number. You can also see this in the Mandarin title for 1001 Nights. Without the ling, you'd be on the hook for 99 more nights.
Sweet, so now I know the 2 exceptions. All I need is the word for 1000, and then I can count all the way up to 999,999.
I hate to break it to you, but there's one more thing we have to go over before we can go beyond 9,999. But I promise, after this is the last new piece of information.
Fine.
Mandarin operates on a base 10,000 system.
What does that mean?
It means that, while in English you get a new place name every 3 zeros after 1,000, in Mandarin you get new places every 4 zeros after 10,000. So in English you have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, etc. Each one having 3 zeros in between. In Mandarin you have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100 millions, 1 trillions, and so on. To be honest, this still trips me up to this day. You look at villas online and you think you found a steal, but then you remember Mandarin operates on the base 10,000 system, and so that $100,000 house is actually $1 million. Way out of your price range. Let's take it down a notch and talk counting on your fingers.
I can do that. That's easy.
Well, of course you can, Greg. Even toddlers can do it. But did you know, in Mandarin, you can count to 10 on just one hand? Well, it starts out easy enough. 1 through 5 are just the same as in English, but then when you get to 6, you're going to need a little bit of extra dexterity. 6 is formed with the pinky finger and the thumb like this. This is supposed to evoke the shape of the character Liu. 7 is like this, also supposed to evoke the shape of the character Qi. 8 is like this, supposed to evoke the shape of the character yet again. 9 is like this. Too hard to replicate the whole character, so they just went for the tail end. And then for shi, you actually have two forms. One is like this, which looks like a rock, which has the same pronunciation as shi. And then you have this, which is supposed to evoke the character, and I guess the fingers are crossed, but I don't see the resemblance beyond that. 0 is the same as in English. Brings new meaning to the phrase, I can count the number of yachts I have on one hand. Well, doesn't change for me, but it might for you. In Taiwan, the numbers through 6 are the same as in the mainland. However, when you get to 7, things get a little bit different. So, 7 is like this, 8, you add the middle finger, 9 is like this, and then 10, you have to use 2 fingers. I'll give it an extra point for looking like the character, but I'm going to have to deduct points for using 2 hands. Astute viewers will notice that the gesture for 7 in Taiwan looks exactly like the gesture for 8 in the mainland, something I wish that somebody had told me before I asked how many stops it took to get to the National Palace Museum, but now you know, and you won't have to make a hike back through the mountains. Sounds like there's nothing too difficult about numbers in Mandarin. Well, that's what I thought too. Until I walked into the post office, transfer slip in hand, ready to pay my first semester's tuition at university. Yes, post offices do handle basic banking, but that's a topic for another video. Anyways, I give my transfer slip to the clerk and she tells me,
先生，你这里不能用阿拉伯数字。
Alright, I thought, I'll just fill it out in characters. She takes a look at my new slip and says,
不对，要用大写数字。
I'd never heard of capital numbers before, and so you can imagine my confusion. Sensing my confusion and looking at my foreignness, she took pity on me and tapped a laminated piece of paper that was on the counter. Imagine my surprise when I saw a bunch of characters I'd never seen before. Turns out, when filling out financial forms such as these, you need to use banking numbers. The purpose of these numbers is to prevent fraud, as it is very easy in Mandarin to convert a 1 to a 7, or a 10 to 1,000, but with these numbers, not so much. Not that they made me feel any better, as I painstakingly converted my tuition payment into banking numbers. Now when I say lucky numbers, what comes to mind? Maybe the numbers 3 or 7? Well, if you're from China, you'd probably think of the numbers 6 or 8. But why 6 and 8? Well, the answer is puns. The number 6 is pronounced liu in Mandarin, which sounds like the liu in shunliu, or smooth and orderly. So the number 6 represents a smooth and stable life. The number 8, on the other hand, gets its lucky status for sounding like fa in fa cai, or earning money. A little bit of a stretch if you ask me, but if that's what it takes, I wouldn't mind a couple more 8s in my life. These numbers are very popular in Chinese culture. When getting my SIM card for university, the phone company gave me a couple of options. I could either pick from one of their free numbers, or I could pay a little bit extra to get one of their premium numbers, which had more 6s and 8s. I declined, of course, looking at the number in my bank account. A few other numbers have special meanings in Mandarin. For example, the number 9 sounds like 9, as in a long time. For this reason, Senior Citizens Day is celebrated on the 9th day of the 9th lunar month, usually landing sometime in October. I guess because they've lived for a long time. There are even few number combinations that have special meanings, also for punny reasons. For example, the number 520 means I love you, 1314 means forever, and 360 means miss you. The combinations are more modern inventions, however. As you might have noticed, the number 666 would be considered very lucky in China, whereas in the United States it's known as the mark of the beast. Similarly, in China there are no qualms about the number 13. No, the unlucky number in Chinese culture is the number 4. Number 4, 4, sounds like death, 死, and so it is considered unlucky. I was told that, for this reason, 4th floor apartments would be cheaper. But when it came time for me to look for an apartment, I found out that was a lie. Turns out landlords aren't that superstitious when it comes to their wallets. Mandarin is a language replete with sayings, and some of those sayings have to do with numbers. For example, if you ask your friend how their new relationship is going, they might respond with
八字还没有一撇呢。
You notice that the character ba in Mandarin only has 2 strokes, the left one being pie and the right one being na. And so if it doesn't have a pie, that means it hasn't even started yet. So that's just your friend's way of saying that they can't even begin to tell. Other phrases include 不三不四, neither 3 nor 4. This can be used to describe a person as being shady or something as being devoid of meaning. You can use 独一无二, literally lone one, no two, to describe something as completely unique. Lastly, you can describe someone's mental state as being 七上八下, meaning perturbed or agitated. This is comparing someone's mental state to using 15 buckets to draw water from the well. 7 are going up and 8 are going down. As you can imagine, things are pretty chaotic and there's a lot going on. There are many, many more sayings like this. Let us know if you know of any others in the comments below, or if you know of any other sayings using numbers in English, Mandarin, or any other languages.
Thank you all for watching. Hope you guys all learned something about how the US and China view and use numbers. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you want to see more. We will see you in the next one. Bye bye.